Another episode here of Getting There with Goss, talking about the career journeys of media members, coaches, athletes, business owners, and more. Joining us now, my pal, CBS6, Albany's own Chet Davis joins us. And Chet, as many fantasy football podcasts and hits on the Upstate Sports hits I've done, you and I have never really done this part of it as friends, talking about the career, at least with microphones in front of us. So let's start at the beginning. A young Chet Davis, 6', 7", 8 years old. Where'd you grow up? What did you want to be as a kid? And is it the same dream job you wanted when you were 18?
First of all, guys, what took you so long? Like, I've been waiting. I have been waiting for my invite. And after seeing many of my peers come on this great platform, I was like, wow, maybe I didn't think Gaz and I had the same relationship I thought we had, But, thank you for finally inviting me on to Getting There with Gaz.
What was that like, by the way? They picked him? He picked her? You got to be kidding me. What am I doing wrong? Did he lose my number?
I was like making sure you still had my phone number. Like, did I do something wrong on our podcast? Did I upset you? Obviously, I missed our days when you were coming on the Upstate Sports Edge. RIP to that show. But, all right, so this is the question. What did I want to do when I was 6 or 7? That's what we're
Yes.
I mean, dude, it's the most generic answer. I wanted to be in the NFL. Like, I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. My brother, my dad loved the NFL. So like there's pictures of us all like lined up on the couch for NFL Sundays. My dad was a Bears fan. My brother grew up a Buffalo Bills fan. He actually gave up on his Bills fandom, which is hilarious because now they're good. He gave up the day they drafted Josh Allen.
Wow.
Because he's like, I'm done. He was a Mahomes lover. And he's so wrong with predictions. But I will give him credit. He knew Mahomes was going to be great from college. And so, but I grew up a Steelers fan. So I was Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's just back in those days, we didn't have Sunday ticket. And so it was wherever the games that were on that national broadcast, whether it was Fox or CBS. And it was like my dad said, it's about time you pick a team. So like we'll give you a couple weeks, see if you can watch a few teams that we get. And I saw Jerome Bettis, and I was like, that guy is awesome. And I wasn't a big kid, so I couldn't relate to like the fact that he was a big running back. I just thought it was so funny to see him just plow over people. So I fell in love with the bus, became a Steelers fan, and then my favorite sport has always been football. So that was the pipe dream, was to make it to the NFL.
Didn't you grow up on a thoroughbred horse racing farm though, or something like that? Is thoroughbreds connected to your family?
I did. Milford Farms is where I grew up in Unadilla. So this is upstate. We're talking like so it's Otsego County, near Oneonta. I tell a lot of people near Cooperstown, because if you're in sports, you obviously you've heard of the Hall of Fame, you've heard of Cooperstown. And so there was a thoroughbred side, but there was also a boarding side. So kind of a multiple operation horse farm. And it's funny because now that I'm in Albany and we obviously cover a lot of Saratoga, my knowledge of horse racing is horrible. It's subpar. And you would think, growing up, day one, I've always been around horses, but my dad never really took us to the races. He never really went to the races himself. Sometimes he'd make some trips to Saratoga. He would do a lot of dealings in Kentucky. But for us, horses were these animals that I had to pick up their poop, and they like stepped on my feet a lot, and I hated it. Like I broke all of my toes as a kid. So my relationship with horses were very different. Like people would come over, my friend, like, "Oh, look how beautiful." I'm like, "No, that horse sucks. Like that horse bit me. Like I hate that horse." So no, it was, and it's funny, when I turned 7 years old, because I'm the youngest of 3. And so when we turned 7, that was when, for whatever reason, my father decided we were old enough to work in the barn. And so I don't know why I thought I was special, but like after my 7th birthday, I remember being like, uh-oh, I think my time has come. But I still woke up that next day with like, maybe he's not going to call me, No, he did. And so I got woke up.
By the way, not to cut you off, Shep, but just give us like a time. When you hear wake up at the farm, is this a 4 a.m. wake up?
Not that bad, but it was like, we're talking like 6 a.m. Wake up call. And so from 7 years on, he ruined my tradition of watching Transformers on Sunday morning. So instead of doing that, I was in the barn with my brother and sister, and we essentially ran the barn on Sundays. It was the 3 of us, and we had one manager, but we had to take the horses in and out. We had to water, we had to feed, clean up the poop like I was talking about, that lovely manure. And that was all the way through. Our entire childhood was we were working on the farm.
And just because of the Syracuse connection, I think it's needed to clarify. They never ran, right? The horses you had?
Oh, no. Oh, they did. They did.
Oh, okay.
So there's like, it's like connections. You know how complicated it can be where ownership groups can be dozens of people. So my dad did have connections in that way and I do remember there was one year my dad had some sliver of ownership in a horse that ran in the Kentucky Derby. And we joked because we got really excited and he finished like dead last. And like, I remember like the next day we were like, hey, did he finish the crop? Did he finish yet? Is he still out on the track? Yeah. But no, the big horse was, and I did never realize this until later in life, but Spectacular Bid. For any horse racing fans, Spectacular Bid was on our farm, the horse that won the Kentucky and the Preakness and then lost in the Belmont. So my dad somehow pulled off a deal where he convinced the owners that Spectacular Bid would be a much bigger fish in New York than he would in Kentucky, and that you'd get all the business of the northern, states. And so he pulled it off, and Spectacular Bid actually died on our farm. I think this was in the early 2000s. And to me, again, I had no idea. He was just like, there's a separate barn for the thoroughbreds, and they get treated like kings. And so I knew that they were special horses, but I didn't understand the extent. And so when Spectacular Bid passed away, a couple other of our thoroughbreds, stallions, had passed away in the years prior. And so my father had built an identical memorial. There'd been a little like graveyard in the back of the barn where he put, a little statue kind of thing. And one random day, one random summer, we had a lot of people that would come to the farm and just, take pictures and stop on the roadside. And that was always fine. But this guy stopped and came on the farm and asked if he could see where Spectacular Bid was buried. And my dad's like, yeah, he's out back. Go take a look. And the guy came back to my father and he said, no offense, I want to build a memorial. My dad's like, go for it, man. And so this guy literally built this, it's not massive, but it was a pretty large, dedicated memorial just to Spectacular Bid that listed his career record, which I think he had 30 wins, 2 seconds, and a third out of 34 starts. So he was unbelievable. And then he put the quote, and I forget who the quote was from, but it was about Spectacular Bid, that this is the greatest horse that ever looked through a bridle. And he had this it was beautiful. And so, yeah, that was kind of my upbringing, being around those horses. And again, I wish I knew more. I still go to Saratoga and I learn something new every time. I really do.
Now, you and I got to get close because of the Albany connection, also because you are a Syracuse alum. You decided to go to Central New York for college. Before we get there, I think it's important to note this too. Weren't you afraid of speaking in front of crowds as a kid, like almost diagnosed at a point with a phobia?
Not diagnosed. Not
okay.
Diagnosed for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Davis gave you the diagnosis.
You did do your research. I despised talking in front of people. I remember having to do book reports, and I would just get, a lot of people get nervous sweats, but dude, I would my cheeks, I get rosy cheeks no matter what. My cheeks would get bright red. It's anxiety. It's kind of looking back. That's kind of what it was. I just get super anxious, and just those were the worst days. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny when you look back and you're like, how do you do what you do? It's very different talking to a camera than talking to a large crowd, which I have had to do. I've had to make a few speeches in auditoriums, and those still, I've gotten better at it. I think more charismatic, but deep down, man, those butterflies, especially beforehand, are still definitely real.
I was going to ask you about Syracuse next, but I think there's a follow-up that's sitting there. I'm sure that younger people who probably are hearing that from you may steer away from broadcasting, whether it be television, radio, even launching their own podcast. So many people want to get started, but they're afraid of that. What helped you conquer that fear?
Honestly, just reps. Honestly, I think just this is the more you do it, you get more confidence in yourself. And you're like, I can do this. And, with TV, it's a little bit different when you have a teleprompter. I think that definitely helped, where I could you trust the work you put in. I know I wrote a good script. If I stick to the script, I'm going to be fine. Now, when I was also at Syracuse, I did some radio as well, where it was, just like this kind of format, doing sports talk. And, that's a different beast. And that also, again, the more I did it, when I got to Syracuse, I know I'm kind of jumping around here on the Syracuse stuff, but when I got there, I had done zero in media, whether it was radio or anything like that. And a lot of my peers, a lot of the students had taken classes in high school or had been the announcer for their basketball team or had interned already. And I'm just like, dude, I can barely write a sentence. How the heck am I going to keep up with these guys? But again, it's just the more you do it, you get comfortable. And I think another advice I'd have for people is, if you know you want to do this, yeah, it's great to get these reps and get as much exposure as you can, whether it's through internships or getting a job at a local college station or something. But honestly, just socialize. Like, not in front of a camera, like just go out and talk to people. There's a lot of people in this industry that struggle with that, and they can be great at their job, but just in the regular world, it's hard for them to communicate with people. The more you do that, putting yourself out there, making friends, I think the better you become conversating in your work life as well.
Yes, Chet, that last piece of advice, I think some people think we're joking when we say that, but when you actually become sociable and talk to people and have conversations, it leads to my advice. And because we're on the topic, I don't think I've ever even said this on a podcast before. People ask me, like, don't you get nervous going on the air? Don't you get nervous doing a podcast or talking in front of crowds? I give the same piece of advice. I'm half joking, but like half serious with this. Nobody's listening. Like, that's my best advice. If you're giving a speech at a wedding, the only people who are listening are the bride and groom. Everybody else is probably already a few drinks deep. They don't know what's going on. If you're giving a presentation at school, trust me, nobody's listening except the teacher. Right. So if you have the mindset, like you're on television, podcast, radio, if you started to think about how many people who are watching you or listening to you, it would freak you out. Just assume no one's listening. And like you just said, just have conversations like you're having conversations with your friends and they're getting recorded. That's the only difference.
I've had some moments like that because I had the exact same approach and even early in my career in broadcast, I mean, the fear of public speaking or talking for my job, it was there. Like, I got really nervous. There were some interviews where it was with I interviewed Tim Brown, was probably one of the early on, stars that I grew up watching, and I interviewed him one-on-one, and dude, I got nervous. Like, I got the sweats on my back, and just like, and you almost have to like talk to yourself like, dude, just calm down. Like, you're fine, you're good. But I do tell myself, like, no one's watching, Chet, you're good. But then you get those texts after a show.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God, people were watching. That actually and it makes you nervous afterwards, which doesn't really matter because it's already done with. But so that's that reminder of like, oh, because even now in Albany, some people back home can actually catch my shows. I'm like right on the cusp. Oneonta is able to get some CBS6 shows, and some of my high school friends or people that work with my parents are able to get the broadcasts. And so they'll tell my parents or my friends, like, hey, we saw Chet joking about this. He was hilarious. And I'm like, oh my God, people are actually seeing this? I thought this was just for fun.
Chet, I'm telling you, that what you just said, and I'm serious, like college students or people who start their career for the first time, what Chet just said has happened to me so often where I would look down at my phone, and a lot of people don't realize this. There's a 10-second delay in radio where anything we'd say, you'd hear it 10 seconds later. I would look at my phone and start buzzing. And people would start tweeting or texting me during the show and be like, why are you listening? Not like to be mean, but I'm like, oh my God, that's right. People are actually, like, I put myself such in that mindset of nobody's listening that I would actually get genuinely startled when that actually hear someone like on social media right into the show or text me during the show. It's insane, man. All right. So like that Syracuse part, we've touched on a lot of your former classmates and people who've graduated from Syracuse about, that first meeting when you go to WAER and how intimidating it can be. I kind of want to skip over that for you just because your path is a little different, because a lot of the previous guests have been play-by-play. You are television anchor. Was the goal always to do TV? Did you initially start play-by-play? What were those first years in Syracuse like trying to find your way?
I had no idea. And that was kind of fun. I was not set in I know I want to do this. I mean, people they've asked me from day one of being in TV, oh, what's your goal? And it's been, yeah, sure, ESPN. I want to be on SportsCenter. I want to be Scott Van Pelt, who was my idol kind of growing up in that aspect. But quick shout out, as we mentioned WAR, I got to give a shout out to AJ Cannell, formerly known as Andrew Cannell, who was my college roommate. He's actually the reason I went to that first radio meeting. I had no idea. I should have done more research, I guess, when I was in high school. But I knew Syracuse was a great program, and I thought that the classes were the most important thing. And the classes are good. But that first weekend, Andrew was getting ready and packing up his backpack, and it was at a weird hour. And I'm like, where are you going? Classes haven't even started yet. And he goes, oh, it's the WAR interest meeting. I'm like, the W what? Huh? And he's like, he looked at me like I was a moron. He's like, you want to be a sports broadcaster? And he started listing the people that have been there. I'm like, where's my backpack? Like, I got to go.
Bob Costas while he's walking out the door. You're like, hang on. You said Costas? I'm coming with you.
Yeah, Mike Tirico? Okay, Sean McDonough, let's go. And so, yeah, those first couple of years, and it's actually funny because I had no experience in this at all. There were multiple opportunities at Syracuse with student-run organizations. So WAER was a radio station. Z89 was also a radio station, a little less, I guess, formal is how I would describe that. AER was very structured, and there was the alumni from that. Z89, a little more laid back. It was still, they took it very seriously, but it was easier maybe to get on air. And then there was Citrus TV, which you would think, okay, Chet's, if you read my resume now, you're like, well, Chet definitely did Citrus TV. I didn't. I literally only did WAER because the way I looked at it is I need to take baby steps. Like the on-air stuff, like if I need to focus, I just want to get good at writing before I try to figure out how to be good on air. Because it's like the training wheels. I didn't want to just go jump on the bike. I'd fall flat on my face. I wanted to make sure I knew how to write and I knew how to do that. And then that would carry over into the TV part. And then I got to a point where, there were people that did all three, and those people had no social life. Like they're working harder than some professionals right now. Like the way that they're doing classes, doing, 16 credits, I think is what we used to do back, 4 credits each, whatever it was. And then calling games on a Saturday, anchoring shows on Sunday, Monday, doing morning. Like they were literally doing every single day. And I kind of took a step back and was like, we got to still be kids here. We're still college kids. Let's have a great experience. But I also realized how important WAER was in opening doors and, again, honing in my craft and figuring out how to do it. So the first couple of years, you do the morning updates, and then I actually did do play-by-play as well. I got to call some Syracuse football games, which before I even was able to do that, I had to call local high school football in Syracuse, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
I attended those games, which was just so weird because you're like, I'm not even from this high school, and I'm in college, and I'm standing in the bleachers with a microphone. Like, what am I doing? But I did it, and I did it. And I got to call some Cuse football games, which were great experiences. I made a trip to Cincinnati to call a game at Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. Back to my Steelers fandom was very cool. But I felt like I was okay at play-by-play, but it never clicked as like, this is my calling. Like, this is for me. It was fun. It was a good experience. But I was like, I think I probably want to go that TV route. And so the only TV experience I really had in college was from classes. And then, so that first job when I was in California was a whirlwind for sure.
Yeah, let's stop right there because it still blows my mind. And I know even you telling that story, it's probably giving you like how – the fact you're not on Citrus TV as a professional sports anchor coming out of Syracuse, this, I guess the best comparison I could say is like you're a 16 seed coming out of college to land a TV job because you have no tape, or maybe you do, and we'll get to that. But before we go there, I think it is important to note this part because you and I only have small settings where we can, I guess, kind of show this part off about our collegiate experience. You and I are both double majors in 4 years. I have the Media and Society, which is basically a fancy word for communications and political science. You are a double major. Kind of take us through why you became a double major, and did that have any effect on you not being a part of Citrus TV?
No.
Okay.
It was actually an accident. So at Syracuse, one of the prereqs, and a lot of colleges have this, I had to take a language. And so I took Spanish in high school, and I was not great at Spanish coming out of high school. And so I was like, let me try something new. And what would be like something that could be valuable? And I just randomly had like a freshman friend who told me that if you were American born and fluent in Arabic, you could get a great job with the CIA. And I was like, I want a great job with the CIA. And I learned Arabic. And I was like, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. And so through the Arabic, I was able to take some poli-sci classes that were connected to Middle East. Like I couldn't major in Arabic, but I was like, maybe I'll minor in it. And then like all of a sudden I kind of racked up these poli-sci classes. And what ended up happening was I went too fast in my credits. I brought in some AP classes. And so by my end of my junior year, I was paranoid every time I had to set up my classes that I was going to mess something up. Because there was all these checklists. You had to have a certain amount of this, a certain amount of this, or you're not going to graduate. And so I'd always meet with my advisor and be like, am I on track? Am I good? And she was like, oh, you're going to graduate early. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I am not ready to graduate early. And so she's like, well, I guess you could. If you're a few more classes away, you could just be a double major. And I was like, sign me up. Let's do it. And so it's actually funny. My last semester at Syracuse, I only took 2 classes. One was a 100 level sports and religion, which fun fact, and kids don't take this advice, but it was the only class in college that I actually read the course material. And I probably shouldn't be admitting that. I do not read. And it stinks because I actually enjoy, like, I love stories. You know, I love movies and TV shows. Something about reading, I fall asleep. And it's been that way since '61. My mother is an English teacher. Like, she's probably rolling her eyes right now, just like even thinking about me saying this, but like, it's true. And she tried. She got me all different types of literature. I just like, I would sit in a chair and be like 10 pages in, like, I want to fall asleep. Get me out of here. My sports religion was great. It was actually about lacrosse, the Healers game, which was a really cool, insight into that sport. Syracuse lacrosse, obviously super popular. And then my second class was like actually much more difficult, like military and politics, but that was it. Those were my 2 classes my senior year. And how it works at the radio station, they kind of wean you out because they want the next generation to take over. Like they want the juniors to call all the lacrosse games. Seniors, get out of the way. Your time is done. So my last semester in college was a great time. A lot of fun. I actually had to go like technically part-time, but I wasn't ready. Like you build such great friendships, and I do know some people that did graduate early and start their career, and that's, to each their own. I just was like, nope, I got some more things that I want to be able to do, and college were the best 4 years. So the poli-sci thing was kind of an accident. I have not utilized it whatsoever in my career.
Well, at one point, we'll both run for office here in Albany. It'll be Davis Kozlowski. We'll use our poli-sci. We vote. So there we go. There's how we use our poli-sci degrees every November. And there you go. I like how you, by the way, just comparison to the double major here. I figured mine out from freshman year all the way to senior year. Like, I literally had every course planned out. I had the 4-year plan. I did it so well that I maneuvered that I'd never had class for my junior or senior year on Fridays. Well, you pieced it together at the end and spent more time at Chuck's and Fagan's your final.
Yes.
Who got it right between the one of the two of us? You can decide on your own while you're listening.
I still remember picking those classes. I'm not sure how it worked at Hobart, but you could have the perfect plan, and then based on how they random order who got to pick first, classes were full. And you were like, oh my God, back to the drawing board. And you start taking wine. Oh, everyone wants the wine and beer class, but you're never going to get it. You know what I mean? It was just, talk about anxiety. Trying to figure out your class schedule every year was a nightmare.
All right, so you said California was the first job. I don't think I even knew this. So you have basically no tape being in front of the camera, or you do and you figured it out. Take us through how in the world, although you're enjoying your time there at Chuck's, they did kick you off campus and say you had to leave. How did you land this first job, and what are you sending to them?
So yeah, that was rough. And we had our reels that we would make in class. So we'd have like a BDJ class for our senior year where we would do some real shows. And it was really great when you look back on it to think that 20 and 21-year-olds were doing literally a full newscast. We had someone, and we'd rotate roles where someone would be the producer and someone would be the director, the anchors, the reporters. I think we did like a little sports block as well that I never even got a chance to do, I don't think. But so based on that, I was able to put some stuff together, and then from packages in class that we were able to assemble. And then I had to do some stuff on my own. You could rent out gear from Newhouse. And I remember I actually did, my college roommate was on the golf team at Syracuse. He actually might have been the golf president, if I'm not mistaken. And so he actually had a crazy story where, like, his final golf tournament, because it's like club golf at Syracuse, but his final tournament was like he was one shot away from qualifying for this Vegas all-inclusive massive tournament nationwide, and he rimmed out his putt. Oh. Yeah, and it was his final thing. So I'm like, John, that's a pretty crazy story. Can I like actually tell it? It's not going to be seen anywhere except for on my reel. And he's like, sure. So we went to what's the place? It begins with a D. Drumlins? Yeah. Drumlins Golf Course. Yeah, that's where we went. And we shot. By the way, the editing was fantastic. Where I was able to get the ball to rim out. It was just beautiful. Ooh. Yeah. It was matched action. Kids, if you're going to get into TV or video, that's the best advice I can give you. Shoot video, match your action. Anyway, so I put that together. And so, I mean, if I look back on that reel, talk about, what do the kids say, cringe? That was definitely cringe. I shot stand up in the Mellow Center. But so, and it's wild how it works where you're just sending your stuff everywhere. I applied anything that popped up that was in the top 100. I was realistic. I was like, I see a job, like a Syracuse job or an Albany job. I was like, yeah, we're not ready for that. No. So I'm sending all these random places because I was in the, mindset, whoever gives me a job, I'm going. Like, I don't care where we go. I had friends that were getting jobs in Kansas and North Dakota, Ohio. And so I was actually it's weird. A lot of people that don't go to the Northeast don't know about senior week. And you and I have talked about this before, I think, where to us, it was very well known when you get done with your classes, there's that week buffer the end of finals and your graduation. And so it was actually in that week, I was at a pool party at a friend who lived in Syracuse, invited us over to her parents' house for a pool party. And my phone goes off and I almost pushed deny because it said it was a California area code. And I was like, I didn't do anything with, and I was like, wait a second. And I was like, turn the music off. And so I pulled the plug on the speaker. And I answer, and it was Manny Machado, who was the sports director for KIEM in Eureka, California.
Did you say Manny Machado?
Manny Machado, just like
wow.
Oh yeah, we always joked about that. But yeah, so Manuel on air, but Manny Machado, he called me. He said he liked my stuff, and I literally as he's talking to me, I'm trying to remember where this actually is because he's like, hey, it's Manny Machado of KIEM, and I'm like KIEM. I've sent out 50 applications. I have no idea who you are. But he said he wanted if I had time for an interview. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, let's do it, man. So we did the interview right there. And he said he was going to give me a call back. And sure enough, a few days later, he offered me a job to go out to Eureka, California, which is, for people that don't know, this is Oregon. This is up there. This is the redwoods on the coast, though. So I'm on the Pacific Ocean, which, again, compared to some of my classmates who were going to the Midwest, no offense to the Midwest, I was like, California, Iowa, I'm going to go California. I want to get out on the West Coast. And I thought I was going to get LA, California, rudely awakened. But I loved it because I'm an outdoors guy. So it was perfect for me. So I graduated, I guess it was a Friday or a Saturday, and I was packed and ready to go on a Monday. So I went home for literally 2 days, threw my life into my car, kissed my mom goodbye. Actually, one of my college buddies who hadn't got a job yet, who's an engineer, he does have a job now, don't worry. He's like, can I go with you? And I was like, heck yeah, man, let's go. And so him and I road tripped from New York all the way to California in, I think it was 6 days. And we stopped in and saw some people on the way. And it was the best trip of my life, to be honest. We had so much fun. And then I was up in Eureka. My brother was living in San Francisco at the time. Shout out to all the media, the logo work here on Getting There with Gaz and Gazilla Media, done by my brother, Matthew. And so I stopped and saw
Squatch. Don't give the shout out on Instagram. Don't know Squatch. You need some stuff from Matthew. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
A shirt for Unadilla as well.
Yeah.
Not bad. Very cool. Little ode to our hometown. And and there I was in Eureka. And I had this moment, guys, where I made the trip. I had nowhere to stay. So on my kind of drive out, I looked on Craigslist and I tried to set up appointments because I had no idea. I was hoping I was going to be able to live with a coworker, maybe someone else in the same situation. Nobody needed a roommate, or maybe they saw me on Facebook and they're like, heck no. So I was doing the Craigslist thing and I set up a few appointments. So I stayed at a really sketchy hotel motel. I had to put a sleeping bag on top of the bed kind of place. And I went to multiple Craigslist places and they were even worse than the hotel. And then the fourth place I went was a normal couple and they were just looking for somebody to help pay the mortgage. And I'm like, where do I sign? But so that night, these are complete strangers.
Wait. I got to stop you. Hang on. You're in Eureka, California. You got your buddy from college. And now you just told me, if you watch, by the way, on the video side, I'm plugging in the laptop because I just realized it wasn't charging. So Chet is telling the story. I'm turning around, plugging in the laptop, and I come back and I hear you talking about moving in with strangers. So who's going to live here? 2 random strangers you just picked up on the side of the street, Eureka?
I'm the person on the side of the street. This is their home. I'm in their home. No. Dude, I had nowhere to go, man. I thought that I was going to be able to live with a coworker, but nobody needed a roommate. And so it was all via Craigslist. My college friend's already flown back to New York, so he's gone. My brother's already drove back to San Francisco. He's gone. I know no one. Actually, oh my gosh, I forgot one detail. When I first, actually the guy that I drove out with, randomly, his dad had a high school friend who lived in Eureka. And he gave me a warning that he was like, she's kind of out there. And I'm like, okay, I get along with anybody. Dude, she was out there. She was not only out there like on the outskirts of the world, she was a hoarder. And people that don't know about Humboldt County, do a little research. There's some Netflix shows that'll give you some insight on redwoods. Dude, I remember going to sleep in this house. She had cleaned my room, which I was very thankful, but the whole rest of the house, I'm talking like floor to ceiling of junk. And this is a friend of a friend, dad friend, something like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I stayed there. I slept there for a night, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. I was super thankful that she let me stay there, but I was like, I'm out of here. And so, yeah, I randomly found these people on Craigslist that seemed normal, and they were. They ended up being great people. But I had a moment where, I literally rented out. It was a room. Everything else was shared. Like, they let me use the kitchen, and they let me see daylight every now and then. But I had a moment that night where I took a shower, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, what have I just done? I left my girlfriend, so that's over. I left my family to start a career on something I honest to God, don't know if I can do this. Like, sure, I did a few shows in college for class and got an A. I don't know if I can do this. And so it was just like, I had a moment. I think about this all the time. I remember being in that bathroom, just like looking at the wall, being like, what have we just done? And then, you dry off, you put your work clothes on, and I drove over to the station, and that was the start of the career.
The time frame is so small there, because how you just told the story, 2.5, 3 weeks previous, you had made a tape of your buddy playing golf because you didn't do Citrus TV and you weren't sure if you actually wanted to be a TV anchor. You're sitting in a pool, hanging out, I'm sure enjoying some adult beverages in your early 20s, and your phone rings from some random California number with some fake baseball player's name. You might be getting pranked. And less than a month later, you're in a one-room place across the entire country in a place called Eureka, California, that a month earlier, Chet, you could not even find on a map. And there you are saying, this is what I want to do. In all the podcasts I've done, I don't think we've ever had a moment quite like this where it flipped from maybe I'll get a sports job to I'm here with strangers across the country hoping I can just start getting taped to get out. As soon as you're in, you want probably out.
It was wild. It really was. And I'm an adventurous person. So I looked forward to, being in a new place. But again, you just have those moments and I felt bad for my mom because she's a worrier, and she's one of the ones that, she did all the research of where you're going and what you're doing and, very supportive. But I knew how worried she was because you're going to such a foreign place. And we haven't even mentioned making $18,000 a year. I think an honest idea came out to maybe 19 tops was what that first year was in California. Luckily, where we are, it's not the normal California expenses you think of. It wasn't super expensive living, but the taxes, were still there and all those kind of things. I was essentially breaking even is what I tell people. I didn't live an extravagant lifestyle, but I also wasn't going backwards, and I never had to ask for help. Luckily, I didn't have any of those moments where, and just because I didn't have to ask for help, it didn't mean like if one thing had gone wrong, like I would have. Like if my car had broke down, I would have needed help. You know what I mean? Like, right. Luckily I just didn't have those things happen. It wasn't like I was doing something, amazing. It was just, I was able to skate by and nothing bad happened. But those were like some of the best years in my career. I loved it. I absolutely did. I'm a small town kid. So being in a small town market, you felt like you were kind of at home. And there were some farm towns in that area as well where I drive by. I was like, man, this feels just like Unadilla, and like the same Friday night football feel where the whole town shuts down and they go to the field. And I was like, this is exactly what it's like. And you felt that appreciation because being a small town kid without a TV station, our closest TV station was Binghamton. And they would come if we were, if we were undefeated and top 10 in the state, they might give us a one highlight. But otherwise, they don't come out there, and I understand why. There's a lot of high schools in that area. Why drive 50 minutes to Unadilla? So you did something you felt like people really appreciated the coverage that you were giving the kids, and the kids were also appreciative of seeing highlights and seeing video and helping with their recruiting tapes or stuff like that. So, dude, I absolutely loved it. I say if I had been paid a remotely respectable salary, I never would have left. I really wouldn't have.
Well, you're mentioning high school there. Did you cover any colleges or professional teams because of your located? And also, I think for perspective for younger reporters and anchors, give us the time frame of kind of the hours you're working at that first job for less than $20K a year.
Sure. Yeah. So for the colleges, Humboldt State was a Division II in Arcata, which is one town above. So that was our big cover. Like that's for comparison purposes, people listening in Albany. It's like covering Albany. It's the same kind of idea. It's your hometown team. With a Division II level. They were called the Jacks, the Humboldt State Jacks, Lumberjacks. And so they were great. They were actually really good when I was there, except for the football team. I brought a curse to that school, and I apologize. Like I had showed up, and my sports director had told me that they have a winning record 5 years in a row. My first year there, they did not win a single game. It was bad. It was bad. First game, they lost their top 3 running backs to season-ending injuries.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, it was rough. But they got better as it went on. And they have other good programs as well. Then they also had a community college that we covered quite a bit. College of the Redwoods is what it was called, the Corsairs.
Ooh, what a name.
All up here, man. So those are the 2 big colleges. In terms of pro sports, we gave a lot of coverage. Again, similar to Albany. We're not in New York City, but we're remotely close. And so like in California, we'd be covering 49ers highlights, Oakland Raiders. At the time they were in Oakland, now they're in Vegas. Same thing with baseball, whether it's the Athletics or the Giants. And also when you move up in these markets, you love to give attention to the athletes that came from your market. So if anybody has gone pro in football, we love to show their highlights. Or there was a guy, I'm gonna forget his name. I think his last name was Jaso. He was a catcher. He played for the Athletics, I believe. So if he ever did anything, we showed the highlights. It's at the pride of McKinleyville, hitting a home run or something like that. But yeah, it was a lot. It was majority high school, and then a lot of Division II level for that. And what was part 2 of that question? Oh, the hours.
Yes, the hours.
Dude, completely random. And that continues. Sports director jobs are much more set in stone for hours, but when you're the reporter or the weekend anchor, dude, the hours can be crazy. It's all just based on when the events are. So on the weekend, this is a 2-person shop. So sports director and me. And so on weekends, I'm by myself. And those days start early. If football kickoff is at 1:00, you're there at 1:00 and you're covering that game. But how it was different, especially at a small shop, and on the West Coast, they have a 10:00 newscast. They don't have an 11.
Oh.
So that kind of I love that. East Coast, what are we doing? No one's awake at 11:00 on a weekday watching us. Come on, let's get at 10:00. But so because it was such a small shop, we didn't have a lot of people working on the weekends. And so I actually pre-recorded most weekends. I pre-recorded my late show because we just didn't have the people to run the cameras. We didn't have the directors, which was, dude, it was such an experience because let's say it's college basketball season and Humboldt State is playing a 7:00 tip-off. I would go cover the start of that game, come back, get my highlights done, and then I would have an open-ended ending. Version 1, Humboldt State wins. Version 2, Humboldt State loses, and I don't say the score. And I also pray to God that the person putting this together is paying attention, or else I'm going to sound like an idiot. But yeah, so it was a lot of, and that was the only place where we did the pre-recorded. After that, later in my career, it was always live. But I loved it because it also allowed me. I was 21 years old. I was there for 2 years, and so you make friends, and as people in this industry understand, nightlife and social life becomes so difficult because you're working late hours, especially as the weekend anchor. You're missing a lot of events, all the festivals I didn't get to go to, those kind of things. So I love being able to tape because I could nail the show. At least I thought I was nailing the show. If you ever make a mistake, you just start over and you go again. Live, you make a mistake, everyone's just laughing at you. And it allowed me to get out a little bit earlier and be able to enjoy a little bit of the nightlife.
That's right. Being in your early 20s and enjoying yourself. So this is the most amazing part about this. You were giving me grief about not having you on the podcast before. you and I are buddies. We're pals. We're friends. I thought I did good enough research, and I hopefully surprised you with some of the stuff you knew. Even some of the stories you've already shared have been entertaining and amazing. Chet, we have yet to even scratch the surface of the NFL players you covered in high school, how you met your fiance in a different state, how you come back to New York, how you land a sports director gig in your 20s. Do you mind if you stick around? We're going to make this a 2-part episode. We have to with all the stories we've already gone through. Are you cool with giving me a little bit more time tonight and we break this up into a 2-parter?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll expect a larger commission check.
That's fine. I'm going to go get something to drink. You do too. We've turned into a 2-part episode with our pal Chet Davis. So get ready for part 2 coming up next.